All right, well, I'm going to get to talk to you today about a topic I'm very passionate about, shopping. No, I'm actually not passionate about shopping, but if maybe you noticed, America is pretty passionate about shopping. I went ahead and just threw some of the ads on this board that came out last week. You may have heard of this day, America's favorite holiday, Black Friday. Black Friday is pretty much the ultimate in self-satisfaction, right? You get whatever you want, when you want it, the price you want it, and you do whatever it takes to get it. If you notice on your notes here, you see this little picture of Elmo down there. And you might be thinking, why is Elmo on the shopping list? Well, I'm sure many of the adults will remember, gosh, it's been quite a while now, 15 years or so, the biggest, the hottest toy was Tickle Me Elmo. It was like this little doll that, you tickled it and it actually laughed, and kids loved it. People were going crazy for this thing. And Black Friday sales, you guys know Black Friday, now it's like Gray Thursday and people line up outside like cattle outside the stores and they get herded in and all this. Well, people were lining up outside stores to get Tickle Me Elmo, this little kid's toy, and people were literally fist fighting over this thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Listen to this. One clerk, I went back and read some of the news articles from 1996 when this happened, and it said one clerk was stampeded over and suffered a pulled hamstring, injuries to his back, jaw, and knee, and a broken rib, and a concussion. Also, people can try to get just Tickle Me Elmo. Now that is crazy, isn't it? And that, obviously, it hasn't stopped in 1996. Black Friday just happened last week. Some of you were probably out in the madness. My wife and I stopped in at a store and saw like how crazy when we actually saw Miss Weeder in there. And she was not being crazy. She was being calm.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't see her stampeding or crushing anyone.
But I doubt that.
If you've ever been to Target, Target's got this huge, long row of aisles next to the cashier. And in between each of those aisles was a winding line to get up there to buy your stuff. Was it not? I mean, it was probably an hour long to get things. And buying things it's not a sin, it's not a problem. But Black Friday does point to an attitude. It points to a culture that we have in America. This whole idea of self-satisfaction. Get what you want, when you want it, for the price you want it, and do whatever it takes to get it. The way you view the world, the first three points, the way you view the world affects the way you view God. So the way you see society, the way you see things around you affects the way you view God. Everybody has a worldview. Okay? Everyone in this room right now has a worldview, whether you know it or not. The way you see life. And it comes from your past, it comes from your experiences, it comes from what your parents teach you, it comes from the school, it comes from a lot of different ways. And whether you know it or not, that worldview is always being challenged by the world. Your Christian worldview is always being challenged by the world. In some ways, it's obvious. It's very evil things will challenge your worldview, right? You can spot evil when you see it. But there's some subtle ways that it's challenged too, and I think that's a real trick of the devil, to try to clothe something evil in light, to make something evil look good. And I think money is one of those areas. You guys have heard, and I know everybody in the older class has heard about the American dream. Right? The American dream is this idea of we pursue wealth. We need to get a good house, we need to get a good car, we need to have a good job, and a good retirement account. And those are kind of good things, right, by themselves. There's nothing wrong with having a nice house, a nice car, having resources. But sometimes we're kind of told that if we don't have those things, or if somebody else has something slightly better than us, then we haven't arrived, or we don't have what we really need. And that's a lie. But it creates pressure to always be pursuing the next thing. Andrew talked about this last week, Mr. Jones, that none of these things are evil in themselves. but it's our attitude towards them that become the problem. And we start to believe the hype. Like sometimes I actually think, money would be me. If I had more money, I'd be happier. Or if I had a better car, or if my debts were all paid off, or if my house was a little bigger, I'd be happier. Well, do you think that's really true? Will those things really make you happier? If it always has to be what I want, when I want it, and if I don't get what I want, I'll move on to the next thing. Let's apply that to another area for a second. What about relationships? Do you think we have a divorce problem in our country? Probably a lot of you come from houses where your parents are divorced, right? Or you know somebody who's divorced. You kind of see the similarity there? Don't like how my marriage is going, so I'll move to the next thing. You guys see it on the small scale here at the school. I don't like the girl that I'm dating, or I don't like the boy that I'm dating, so I'm going to move on to the next one. Because somebody else will give me what I want. This whole consumer attitude infects everything that we do and everything we think about. Think about your career. One day you're going to get older and get a job. The grass can always look greener on the other side. You can always go, man, I wish I could work over there. It'd be so much better, right? Well, if I worked at that school, I wouldn't have any of these problems. I wouldn't deal with that. The kids would be so much better. You guys are awesome, but you get the point. Well, that's not true either. Because what we're getting at, the problem we're getting at here, guys, is about being content. The Bible talks a lot about being content, meaning being satisfied with what you have. Being satisfied with who you are. Being satisfied with what God is doing in your life. And this, if we're not content, if we have this consumer attitude, if we have this Black Friday attitude, I'm telling you, you'll never be content, you'll never be satisfied. Consumer Christianity. What is consumer Christianity? What am I talking about when I say customer Christianity? Well, and you can write this down. It's looking at the different parts of Christianity, like the Bible, or church service, or youth group, or chapel, or music, as all of these things are things for me to consume. They're all products for me to get. I need to get something out of it. Let's be honest. Anybody ever said, I didn't really get anything out of that chapel? I see like one hand going up, and I hear, because I've heard many say that before. I've said that before. We start to look at everything. We look at chapel, we look at youth group, we look at the Bible, we look at the Bible class as, what did I get out of it? If I didn't get anything out of it, I throw it away. I move on to the next product. I need something else that can build me. Well, what does that result in? That results in a very critical person, doesn't it? A critical, judgmental, self-centered, lukewarm person. Think about, let's go back to chapel for a second, because we all have that common experience here. Think of some of the comments that you might make after a chapel. I'm in the Bible classes with a lot of you guys, or have been over the last few years. Okay? I've made comments. I've heard you guys make comments. I've heard things like, that was a great chapel. No, I thought that was a horrible chapel. I really liked the music today. I really hated the music today. You see how all these things are really self-centered perspectives? Notice who's not getting mentioned in all that? Jesus. Well, these are all consumer comments, and we're rating the value of what's being given to us rather than putting the emphasis on God. Think about what that board over there says. The world is screaming at you all the time. It's all about you. Right? It's all about you. You deserve fulfillment. Get whatever you want. But guess what? The Bible screams a whole lot louder at you. And it says, it's not about you. Think about that. I want everybody in a minute to yell, it's not about me. Okay? That's a statement you probably haven't made in a long time. That's a statement you're not going to hear all the time. Not yet. All right. I really think it's important that we verbalize that. So when I count to 3, I want you to scream as loud as you can. It's not about me. I want the guy over here in this house to hear us. Okay? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. It's about Jesus. So let's say that you followed with me so far, that you get the point of everything I've been saying. That we live in a world that tells you you're a customer all the time. We start applying that to our marriage, we start applying that to our friendship, we start applying that to our faith, and it gives a very self-centered, distorted picture. If you're with me, I want you to think, self-centered thinking is very empty. It's doomed. So what principles guide our approach here? Well, Jesus made it real simple. Sometimes we make Christianity really hard, thinking about Christianity and how to live it out really hard. He made it really simple. Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. He said, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Trying to catch Jesus, with this trick question. That's not going to work on Jesus. Sorry to tell him. Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So there's your worldview. There's your perspective. There's your way of living in a nutshell. Jesus said the entire Scripture rested on two things. Loving God, loving your neighbor. Is that so hard to understand? I want you to imagine something. Like I said, we'll use chapel as an example because you all have the same shared experience of being here together. What would happen if every person in this room were to come in next Wednesday completely intent and focused on glorifying God with every action and every thought we had? What do you think would happen? Think about that. What would that look like? We were all here gathered as one body saying, "God, we're going to give you everything we have today." Not that God even needs it. God's got everything, but that's what He desires of us. All of a sudden, it becomes very unimportant how dynamic the speaker is. It becomes very unimportant how funny the videos are. It becomes very unimportant whether you like the worship songs or not. It becomes very unimportant even who you're sitting next to, what they're saying to you. Your homework becomes very unimportant. All of those things kind of fade to the background when God is really being put on the throne. We start worshiping wholeheartedly. We start listening wholeheartedly. We give God our attitude, our ears, our hearts, our thoughts, our actions. And then all of a sudden, wow, I really connected to worship now. Well, that's weird, isn't it? Wow, I really got something out of the sermon today. Well, that's strange. When I get my attitude right and I start to honor God, all of a sudden, all the things I've really been wanting, all the fulfillment I've been wanting to get, starts happening. That seems so backwards, but it's so true. And then think about the loving others. What would it be like if after the worship service, when you're walking back to class, instead of complaining about the songs, you were going to the worship team and go, "Man, you guys are awesome. Man, you get better and better every week." What would that do? What would it do if every time a speaker was here, especially someone from outside of our building, if you guys were coming up to them saying, "Man, that was a great sermon. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate that you were here." How would that change things? I think chapels would start getting pretty good, quote unquote good, right? I think the sermons would start speaking to you. I think you might feel connected with the worship team. I think the crowd would seem less dead. But it starts with you. It starts with you making a choice to say, "I throw all that stuff away. I throw away all the garbage that the world throws at me and all the lies it tells me." And I start saying, "God's number one." You're more than a customer. You're more than a demographic. You're more than a target audience. You're a child of God. Think about that. That's a lot cooler than being a customer, isn't it? You're a child of God. Guess what? You get an inheritance from God that is far greater than anything that you can get from a stupid Black Friday sale.